In this class, we're going to talk about why power, right? What is it about power that we have to study? So I'm going to start by telling you a story. On January 25th in 1990, Avianca Flight 52 was trying to land at JFK Airport in New York. And this is a regularly scheduled flight from Bogota, Colombia to New York City. But that day there was bad weather all up and down the eastern seaboard. So Flight 52 was in a holding pattern along with all the other planes, and they had circled JFK Airport for about 3 times now. And by now, it had been over an hour waiting to land, and they were starting to run low on fuel. So they radioed the air control tower and they asked for priority to land, which is a pretty standard request. And the air traffic controllers gave them priority to land and told them, to clear for landing using the standard procedures, which was to circle northeast, right, for about 15 miles and come back in for a landing. And as they were doing that, they kept coming in for landing, they encountered a very strong gust of wind, and they had to abort the landing and do it again. So they had to go back out northeast, circle around, and as they're coming in to land for the second time, they were dangerously low on fuel, and the engines flamed out. They ran out of fuel altogether. The engines flamed out, and they crashed into a neighborhood in Long Island, killing 73 people on board. Now, when investigators recovered the data, the flight recorded data, they discovered something really interesting, that the flight, they concluded that the airplane crashed not because it ran out of fuel, but they actually said that the airplane crashed because of communication problems. And not just any communication problems, but communication problems that were the result of an overabundance of deference. In other words, a power problem, right? Overabundance of deference from the cockpit crew to the captain, and from the captain to the air traffic control officers at JFK. When they were interviewed later, the air traffic controllers at JFK said they had no idea that the plane was in a state of emergency. They said that the word emergency was never used. And they said that when they heard the captain's voice on the radio, he sounded kind of calm, almost relaxed or nonchalant. And if you listen to the flight recording data, you would hear the same thing. You would hear that the crew was telling the captain that they were low on fuel in a very matter-of-fact way, right? They'd say, "Captain, we're running low on fuel." And when the captain radioed the air traffic controllers, he did the same thing. He said, "We're running low on fuel. Can we have priority to land?" But never once did the voices sound urgent, did they say the word emergency. And it turns out that this is not an isolated event, that this has happened several times in the past. In fact, in 1978, United Flight 173 crashed outside of Portland, Oregon, where I'm from. And again, investigators found the same thing, the failure to communicate within the cockpit. A captain who didn't really listen to the crew, and a crew that had trouble speaking up and being assertive and telling the captain that they were running low on fuel. And this kind of rank miscommunication happens not only in the aviation industry, but in other industries as well. For example, hospital operating rooms, right? In healthcare, 1 out of every 25 patients get a healthcare-associated infection, or they're the victims of a wrong side or wrong site or wrong patient surgery due to simple miscommunications across rank relationships on teams. And this is such a common occurrence that they've developed new training methods where it's a life and death situation, like in the aviation industry or in healthcare, that teaches people how to communicate across rank differences, right? Teaches people in the lower ranking roles how to speak up, and it teaches people in the higher ranking roles how to listen. And this training gives everyone not just the right to speak up, but the requirement to speak up, because it's so important. And that, in a way, is what power intelligence is. It's a training for how to work effectively with power across rank differences and not let ourselves be overly conditioned by those hardwired rank reflexes we all carry. And what are rank reflexes? What do I mean by that? Well, like those cockpit crews or surgical teams, right? We have this built-in reflex to defer in the face of power. We second guess ourselves, we hesitate, we think, maybe they know better. What do I know? Do I have the right to speak up? And when we're in power, people in power, well, we're more conditioned to be more certain about ourselves, to take our opinions more seriously than that of others, right? It gives us more confidence, less interest in getting feedback from other people. And these sort of rank reflexes we all carry within us, and we don't even really know it, right? And so, but research shows that people in lower ranking positions do hesitate to speak up, even in life and death situations. As I said, they doubt themselves, or they doubt that they have a right to speak up, or sometimes they just think, well, they must know better. They know more than I do, or they're my boss, or they're my teacher. They must know, and if they're not saying it, maybe I'm wrong, right? And people in higher ranking roles, research will show, and we'll talk about this in a moment, have a tendency to disregard feedback from other people in lower ranked positions, or just be more interested in their own ideas. But the problem is that, and this is a great paradox of power, is that the higher up you go, the more dependent you are on those below you, right? You're more dependent on them for information, right? You're more dependent on them for getting work done, and you're more dependent on them for critical information and input to make decisions, right? You're not on the front lines. You don't know what's going on, right? You have to hear what's happening from other people with less rank. But, and here's the thing, is that because they have less rank, they're less likely to really tell you what's going on. And so there you are in a higher ranking position. You've got to make critical decisions, but you're operating without perhaps all the information you need. Now, most of you here, or most of you listening, you're not making life and death decisions daily. Chances are you're not performing brain surgery or flying airplanes. But the costs of power dynamics affect everyone, and I just want to spell them out, right, regardless of what you're doing. So these are the sort of the main problems of power that we need to work on. One, power diminishes psychological safety. And what do I mean by that? Well, people just aren't free to engage. It kind of dampens engagement. It's stifling. People are a little scared to speak up. They don't want to challenge the ideas of the teacher or the leader or the more dominant person on the team. They're afraid of being mocked or criticized or shot down for their ideas. And the people with more power, whether it's a leader or whether it's just the more popular person on the team or the more senior person or the person with more know-how, they're not aware of how confident or how scary they sound. And so what happens is that people kind of soften their message if they're speaking up, or they don't speak at all, or maybe they kind of, try to not bring bad news. And they'll try to, make their message a little bit easier to digest. And this is how teams make wrong decisions, how leaders make the wrong decisions, right? Even fatal ones. The second problem that I want to talk about is that power silences some voices. It makes some voices heard more than others. So by virtue of seniority, gender, race, age, education, some voices just get more airtime than others, right? They're more listened to than others. So if you're junior, if you lack seniority, you don't fit in some way, you're not one of the popular ones, whatever it may be, chances are your voice is not heard, and chances are you have trouble having your voice get heard. And what does this do? Well, if you think about a workplace, it's a terrible waste of talent. Some voices aren't heard, and you're not hearing new ideas. Innovation is a casualty of this. Creativity is a casualty of this. Good decision making is a casualty of this. We need to hear all the voices in order to make the very best decisions, right? In order to be creative, in order to innovate. And the final problem is that power is a blind spot. So if you're in any kind of leadership role, right, whether it's a formal leadership role or it's an informal leadership role, you're going to have a blind spot related to your power. And the fact is that the higher up you go, And again, I just want to emphasize it could be because of position, it could be because of your expertise, it could be because of your popularity, your seniority. But the more power you have, the more rank you have, the less likely you are to really understand the impact you have on other people, right? So, and why is that? Well, the thing is the higher up you are and the more impact you have, the more people are motivated to change how they relate to you. They change their behavior towards you. They want to impress you, or they don't want to piss you off, or they want to be on your good side, they want to be friends with you, whatever it is. They're currying favor, or they're trying to impress you, so they're changing their behavior towards you. So you're not really getting an accurate reflection of yourself, right? You're not able to really judge your impact because people are changing how they relate to you. And so you don't really know what it's like to work with you. And this is an incredible blind spot. This is a big blind spot, especially for leaders. And there's a great quote. Robert Sutton, who's a professor of management at Stanford University, says, because I'm the boss, because of how people change their behavior towards me, I have a flawed and incomplete understanding of what it's like to work with me. And I think this is a really common problem. That you could be a nice boss, you could be friendly, you could be empowering, you could be the nicest, friendliest, most emotionally intelligent person on earth, but nonetheless, because of the role of power, this will happen automatically, that people will still want to impress you, and because of that, they'll change their behavior towards you, and you won't really be able to accurately read the impact you're having on other people. So I hope you see why it's important to learn about power and how it impacts us. And I hope that you understand one thing as we go through the next couple of classes together, that this is human nature, and it's baked into a role of power, that no matter what we're doing personally when we step into the role, that there are certain power dynamics which are going to follow, right? And that we have to become aware of it. We have to become aware of what's happening to ourselves and what's happening to other people when we occupy a role of power, and then, of course, what can we do about it?